Hey there, my gorgeous friends on the internet. Today I have a special episode because it's so different from what I usually do. We are going to create a React portfolio website visually. I know, bananas, right? 2023, crazy year. So the people over at Codux were kind enough to sponsor this episode, so I want to thank them so much. But they made this visual IDE that lets you essentially visually create React components and also style them up, kind of like Figma. So let's have a look. I'll give you a quick start on how to get going. It's free to download, so if you head over to Codux.com, they have a Linux, Mac, and Windows version. There's nothing to lose. Give it a shot, and let's see. Okay, so let's get started. So what we're gonna do is go over to the download page here, and I'm gonna get the Windows version. If you're on Mac or Linux, feel free to download those versions. So what are the cool things that you can do with Codux? Well, first of all, you can render any React project quickly in real time. No, it doesn't even have to be a full setup here, a full project. You can just render out, create one simple component, and Codux is gonna set up a board for you to just render that single component out. You can also edit the components here in the properties tab and live, edit the styles, which is fantastic. And all the changes are reflected immediately as well. Now there's loads of third-party libraries integrated as well, and also the ability to push code up on GitHub. But the cool thing is that it's also connected to VS Code. So any changes that you make in your Codux project, you can just pop it open in VS Code and continue maybe adding some logic there. So I'll show you that in just a sec. So let's pop it open. And I'm gonna hit new project here, and they had create React app, but now they support Vite, which is fantastic for the speed. And I also heard that they're gonna add Next.js support soon, so that's awesome. I think in the future they're gonna do all the frameworks, so you can just go in and pick whatever flavor you want. So it's gonna be agnostic to that, which is fantastic. And there's multiple ways you can also style stuff up. We have SCSS, CSS modules. We have Tailwind support as well, and Stylable as well. All right, so we're gonna go with Vite, and I'm gonna name this Dimitri Marco Portfolio. There we go, then you can pick a directory and the technologies that you're using. So there we go, let's create that. And after you created that, as you can see, we can run the command npm run install. All right, so this is just gonna set up the whole project for us right now. Cool, let's hit close, and as you can see by default, we got set up an app component here, and that's exactly what you expected it to be. So before we start going through the project, let's kind of break down all the elements that we have here. So first of all, we have elements, obviously. Here is basically our components. So as you can see, the cube shape, that means that we have the app component being rendered right here. Cool. Now, if I want to add something, I can go up here to the top and I can just simply, drag out like a H1 and pop it in there. Now, again, I cannot drop it like this. As you can see, it stops me because I would have adjacent elements here. I'd have the component and just like a H1. So let's just go in the app here and pop this open if I hit the edit tool. And as you can see, we have all the items here. All right, so if I want to get rid of one of the A tags here, I can just delete that or get rid of this whole div section like that. Now here on the right side, that's for me to just be able to click on these layers. It's kind of like in Figma, right? And then I can just get rid of it. So I can grab the P tag, boom, easy peasy. Now if I want to test the website out, I can go over here to this preview icon, and now we can actually test out the functionality. So how cool is that? How simple is that? So I can just go here and get rid of everything, and then I'm just left with this root div app. And then I can just add any element in here. So I'll add a H1, for example, boom. And then I can go here, and if I click on text, I can come here and just edit it, and it's all live and all real time. So I can be saying, hello, Kodux, boom, done. Now, what if I want to apply some sort of styling? I can go here and hit this plus icon, and what's it gonna do is it's automatically gonna create an SCSS file for you when you're creating a component. So if I go here to the app component, and let's just create a new component. So I'll create new component, and let's call this intro, for example. Perfect. So there you go, created a new component for me. It just added a text. I'll get rid of that. But let's add another header, for example. Boom. All right, so I can change the title, but if I hit plus, create class, as you can see, it already made an intro module SCSS for me. So if we head over here to components, as you can see, we have an intro module and an intro TSX. All right, so it's a fantastic way to just quickly pop in and create loads of components. As a matter of fact, that's exactly what we're gonna do. We're gonna head here and hit add, new component, or we can go here to home and just start making all of our new components here. So I made an intro here. I'll make one called portfolio as well. Let's create that. Head back here. Let's make another one. We're gonna call this navbar. Create. Let's make a new one. We're gonna call this animation. We're gonna have an animation component and then a contact form component. Contact form. Or we can just say contact. And there we go. So we created like how many? 6 different components. And another cool feature you can do is just go select the component up here and you can open it straight up in VS Code like that. But having all of this being set up for us, look at that. So once we added another component, now it organized it in folders for us. So that's really cool. And as you can see, again, they all have their associated SCSS with them, which is fantastic. So let's head over here to the index CSS, and I'll just get rid of a couple of things here. I'll do this color scheme. Let's see what we have here. So we have a dark and light. We'll just keep this one, just one color. All right, we're not gonna do double color schemes. We're gonna get rid of the background color and all of this scheme here. All of this stuff. There we go, perfect. And hit save. All right. Now it has, again, a couple of things adjusted here. So what I'll do is I'll just reset all the margins, paddings to 0, and box sizing border box, just so we have everything nicely set up here. As for the body, I think we are honestly just gonna get rid of all of this because it has a display flex on it now. And yeah, I'm not gonna want that, to be honest. So let's get rid of that and hit save. Cool, perfect. So let's close that up and head back over to Codux. Okay, so here's the finished project. So that's gonna be our nav bar. This is gonna be our intro section here with the title and this animation. So let me refresh that. And then this is gonna be the portfolio section, all right? And then we have some social links down there, and then we have the contact page that we just made. That is gonna have, again, another animation. So as you can see, this is the coolest bit about Codux, is that you can just render out your components in its isolation. Now, a few other things before we get started. You could also edit the code right down here. So you can pop this open and just do everything in Codux. You also have your log here if you want to see your errors. I'm going to close this down. And the panels here, again, are either properties that you can change, and then you have your styles that you can apply, and then your computed styles are here as well. And then if you want to modify the canvas size, you can do it from this tab as well. But just dragging and dropping here like that works perfectly fine. Okay, so again, what should our homepage have? Well, it should have the nav bar and then the intro and that portfolio section right here. So let's get started with this bit here. So what we're gonna do in our app component here, see, we're just gonna go here and add our intro, and we can just drag and drop it like that. So how weird is that? But it's cool. I could go over here and just edit the intro here and then jump back to my application and see how it's evolving. Or we can just do everything from here. All right, so let's start adding stuff. So I'll get rid of that. I'll just leave root here and I'll add, let's start off with a div block. So I'll drag a div block in there, and then I'll add a H2 there. That's gonna be our title. So we're gonna call this Dimitri Marco, like that. Perfect. And after that, we are going to have a H3 in here. So let's drop that in there. I'll make sure it's below. And as you can see, if you hold and highlight, you can see where you're dropping it. So if I want to drop it in the div root, I can let it go there. If I want it in, I can just slide it to the right and to the left like that. All right, cool. So I'll just drop this out. I don't need this. So we have a H2, a H3, and this is gonna say something like software engineer and designer. Now what I want below is gonna be an SVG line. So I'm gonna copy that over, but you're gonna have the code up on GitHub. So if you want to download that line, you can simply do that. So there we go. I just popped that in there. Again, it's just an SVG. That's literally gonna be a line like that because we're gonna animate that in and it's gonna look cool. All right, so there we go. We got that and we can pop this div, we can close it up. And after this, I'm just gonna add a couple of paragraphs here. So let's do a p tag just outside in the root like that, poof. And then we are gonna say, I'm just gonna add some text here. Boom, freelance providing services for programming and design work. That's perfect. And then down below this, I'll just have a button and it's gonna be like a call to action. So let's search button. Pop that down below and there it is. Cool. Now let's rename this to, let's get in touch or something, or let's collaborate. Let's do an emoji. Perfect. Now this is dark, it's fine. We're gonna style it up just about now. So that's our intro all done. So as you can see, we built pretty much everything out through Codux here. And if we check our VS Code, you're gonna see, look at that, everything is perfectly set up for us. Now our height for the viewport here is quite small, so let's just extend it up like that, just so we can see the whole, like visually, how this would look in our page. Perfect, so that's all we got. Let's start styling it up. So I'm gonna hit the div root here, and I'm gonna, as you can see, you can already style this up. All right, so the div root is already set up for you. So let's add a bit of padding here. So we can just go down here, and as you can see, I have padding here. I can change this to rem, m, percentages, anything that I want. I can unlock it here or lock it. So I'll unlock it and I'll just do 6 for the top and boom, there we go. How cool is that? I can do display flex up here. So there we go. I can put it vertically, so in a column, and I can just center it like that. So how cool, this is like 5 seconds to do all of that jazz. All right. Also, I heard that they want to do like to visually add some sort of tailwind support. Whew. Count me in. Okay, so that's done. Next up, let's head over here to, let's pop this open. How about this H2? I want to make this much bigger. So let's add a title class. Let's create that. And I'll just want to make sure we can also search up here. So I can do a font size and I'll switch this over to rem. And let's do something big. Let's do 3. And then we can do a font weight of 700 as well. And boom, done. Let's add a bit of padding as well. So we're gonna go here and let's unlock this again. Let's change it to rem. And I'll do 0.5 for the top and 0.5 for the bottom. There we go, just to give it a bit of space there. All right, for the H3, let's call this subtitle. There we go. And I just want to make sure the weight here is a bit thicker, or actually lighter, because that looks too light. Let's do 500 like that. And just increase the font size a tad bit to 1.5. So let's do 1.5. So for the button, let's go down here and I can just go to the background and look at this feature. How cool is this? Where you can actually visually see the color that you're picking rather than going in code and doing all of that. And look at that, I can even do a gradient really simply. Again, that's quite a bit annoying to do in code, but look, I can change the position of it, hit apply. I get to pick my colors here. So if I click on this, let's do I'll do like a dark, and then add a bit of, purple would look quite cool actually. So I'm happy with that. Let's just change the color quickly to white as well. And there we go. Now we can see everything perfectly fine. So that's our little component done. And there we go. We can pop everything closed here and we can go and create another one. Again, see, as you can see, we could have done this just here if we wanted to and then imported it after right here. But it's up to you. Now, one thing I want to say, if you go here to selectors, as you can see, there's already one set up to buttons, which is fantastic because this is an index CSS, right? So you can add a button tag there if you want. And if you want to style your buttons in a certain way, you could just do all of that and apply it globally here. One thing I'll do is just the padding bit. I'm not super happy with it. So, and the font size might be a bit too big for this. So I'm just gonna make it a tad bit smaller. And then for the padding, I'll do 1 to the top and then 2 to the bottom. Perfect. So our next step in the application is to add this hand. So let's head over to home and we are gonna pop into our animation here. All right, let's pop this open. We'll get rid of this text that it's in here with delete. And we are gonna head over to Lottie. There we go. And let's wait for this to pop open. And we are just, gonna download a really cool animation from here. What we also need to do is install a couple of plugins. So let's head over here and hit npm install in our VS Code. And we can do Lottie React. And we're also gonna add React Router DOM for some navigation and framer motion for some animation. So there we go. If we go over to Lottie files and write 3D hand, you're gonna see this one by Deblazing. It's a really cool one. So we're gonna download this. I'm gonna download the JSON format and we are just gonna simply pop this into our assets here in Codux. So let's pop that in and we are gonna rename it to hand animation. Perfect. All right, so since this is all like code that we need to write for this bit of the page, what we're gonna do is just simply do this bit in VS Code. So let's pop back in here. We're gonna head over to animation. We're gonna import Lottie from Lottie React, and we're also gonna import the hand animation from // hand animation. Perfect. So let's also do framer motion whilst we're at it. So I'm gonna import motion from framer motion, and this is for the only reason to just kind of add a kind of a fade in and a fade out when you enter the page. So I'm just gonna create a motion div here, and then here I'm gonna render out that Lottie player. And this one is also going to take in the animation data, which is going to be our hand. And I believe that that's going to be it, to be honest. And then here on the motion div, again, we can just add like an initial of opacity 0 and a scale of 0. And then what I'm going to do is also add an animate back to 1 and 1 and a transition of 0.6 seconds. All right, so if we head back here to Codux, as you can see, there it is. It's just massive here because it's rendering it out on its own. But if we head over back here, actually what we can do is render out our animation inside our intro component. So we can just go to the intro here, pop intro open, close everything up, and I can just import my component right here. So component, animation, boom, done. How easy is that? So let's click on the animation here, go within that component. I'm gonna hit the root here, and let's head over to styles. I'm gonna do display flex, I'm gonna do vertical for this, and I'm gonna hit align item center and justify center as well. And then I'll search a width here, and I'll just make sure this is like 50%. And it's not too massive. And let's do a little bit of padding as well. So I'm gonna switch this to percentages, and then I'm gonna say 10 on the left and right, unlock it, and do 0 for the top and bottom, like that. Perfect. Now what I also did is I popped in a media screen of max width of 720 pixels here, and I just modified the padding to 4%. Now another feature that's coming is to just be able to edit media queries straight in here, which is, really excited for that one. Now one thing I want to clarify is there's no like media query panel here yet. But what you can do is just apply a selector to a media query, and that's going to pop up here in the selector. So you could just style it up as you would normally would. Okay, so that's pretty much done. Our intro component is done. We can move on to our portfolio. Okay, let's pop open our portfolio. I'm gonna get rid of the text there. And what I'll do is I have 4 images that I took. Feel free to use any other images if you want, but I'll just pop them in here in the assets. Again, it's gonna be on the GitHub, so if you wanna download it, please feel free to do it. And I also have a couple of SVG icons here, like YouTube and Twitter and LinkedIn. So I'll drag those in as well. Again, you can just copy paste over the assets folder for you. Okay, so let's just import them here quickly. So I'll go to the intro, where is it, portfolio, pop that open. Let's import all of them up here. So there we go, those are all the websites right there. So 4 images, and now we can go to the Codux and actually hook this all up. So in this div, let's make a new div, go to basic, pop it in. We'll add a class to this as well. We'll call it portfolio wrapper. Let's create that. Done. Cool. Let's add a H3. Pop that in there. We can also make a new class for this. We can call this H3. So what I'm gonna do is copy over the SVG that we just made in the intro section. So copy paste that over, and let me get rid of these classes. And the only thing I did was added a motion to it, so motion SVG, and I added this initial and animate on the path, which is gonna literally make you that line animate in. So if we refresh, pew, as you can see, it animates it like that. So that's super cool. And that's it. All right, so that's our SVG added in there as well. So there we go. For this section, I added a paragraph, and within that paragraph, I added a couple of spans. So as you can see, the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript is in a span. Let me get rid of these spaces there. And then Creative Thinker is also in its own space, and then we have the text. So you can just add spans as well and combine them together like that. And here on the P tag, I added just a P class just to keep it simple. And I also added a span class right here. Okay, so let's click plus, span, let's just make it again. So what I'll do is I'll just grab the span here and I'll add a different color to it. So let's head over here and pick a nice color. Let's just pop this P tag into this portfolio wrapper because I just want to collapse all of this, and this should be its own section anyway. So next up, what I want to do is actually show like the cards with the images. So I'll just make a new div up here at the top, drag it down, and we'll give it a style as well. So let's add a new class, create, and we're gonna call this, should we do grid items? Let's create. Boom, done. So what do we want in the grid items? Well, we want an image. So let's add an image. And the cool bit is they'll just do an image for you automatically. So if you just kind of want to see it and preview it and you can't be bothered to go and fetch out other images, well, here they all are. So there we go, we have an image, and then I also want to add another div inside here. So I should have actually just named this grid item, to be fair. So let's do that. Let's get rid of this image and actually add another div block in there. And this is gonna have a grid item, not items, and create. Perfect. So in here, let's add the image again. Pop the image in there. And then in here, besides the image, I want to have another div that's gonna be basically our title and like a link to visit to a portfolio. So I'll make a new class called visit portfolio. I cannot type that out. All right, let's add that. And in here, again, it's just gonna be like a H4. So I'll say something like buzz full stack next project. All right. And then below it, we can have like an anchor tag or something that's gonna link us to it. So for the grid items, what I did is I added this repeat autofill here, min-max 321 FR. This is gonna give you mobile responsiveness straight out the bat. Now this doesn't look good yet because we still haven't like adjusted the images and everything. So let's start with that. Let's go here and I'll do grid image. Create a class for that. There we go. And then let's style this all up. We'll do width. I want to make sure this stretches all the way to 100. So we'll do that. We'll add a little border radius to it as well. And you can do that if you go down here, as you can see. We'll do 12. Let's also grab the div visit portfolio here, and we added a display flex on it, which is fantastic. Let's do justify content to center, center, center. There we go, just align everything down here. We'll do a gap of something like 12. We'll be fine. There we go, just to give that extra space down there. Alrighty, let's head back to our app and just import our component right here. So let's get rid of that, go to components, and we are gonna drag in our portfolio. So what I'm gonna do is just add more of these images and try to make like a responsive carousel for it. So there we go. What I did was essentially replace all the source here with my images that I imported, and now we have this. And so there we go, that's it. So now in our application, if we import it here, you're gonna see, now look at that. There's our application. Last but not least, let's add the social links right here below. So let's pop the app again. We have the intro. We have our animation and portfolio right here, so we can pop the portfolio open. And after this grid items div that we have right here, we're going to create a new one. So let's add a div, pop it in the root of this file. There we go, the directory. And we are going to add a class and call this socials. Let's hit create class, add it in there. And again, in this one, we're just gonna pop in those SVGs that I had. And what I also did was just add like an anchor tag to them. So when you click on them, it'll just like navigate over to another page for you. So let me just pop this open here. Div, there we go. And in here, I'll just drop in those SVGs, and that's it. So have a look now. And as you can see, they're absolutely massive. So we're gonna need to do some styling to these. So let's head over here to socials and let's adjust. Let's do a display flex first of all, so they all go nicely in row. I still believe the feature to actually modify like SVGs is not yet added. So what you can do is just, pop over to VS Code and add a fill to it like that. And I just changed the images so they're not too massive. So their height is at like 2.5 rem. So that's the result that we're gonna get right there. Perfect. Alrighty, I think we're just about ready to hook up our navigation. So in our app, we have the intro here, and let's add another one, or we can just go here and create a new component. I think we actually did it here. We have a nav already made, so let's just go there, get rid of this root. And for this one, actually, we're gonna need to do React router DOM. So, okay, so here let's add we have the div root, which is perfect. Let's add a h1, which is gonna be our logo. So let's add a class. I'll just name this logo. Great. Perfect. Next we're gonna add to it is gonna be Dimitri Marco. So we're just gonna keep the title. Perfect. Now we need navigation. So let's search navigation. There we go. Let's pop that in there. We're gonna make sure it's in the div root. And as you can see, we have a couple of tags here. So we have an anchor tag. Let's just get rid of it all because we're gonna manually link this up here, to be honest. So what we can do is pop in an li here, and we're gonna import link from React router DOM. There we go. And what else I want to do is also wrap this h1 here in a link tag, just in case the user clicks on their name, you still go back to the home page. And 2, it's gonna be to our index. And then down here, we're gonna add another link tag. And this is gonna say portfolio, and this is gonna go to / again. If you want, like, if you can make like a specific page only for the portfolio bit if you wanted to, but I'll keep it simple. And here we'll make another one called contact, like that. Perfect. So that's our navigation all linked up. Now, as you can see, you might get an error here, and this is because there is still a little error when you're trying to use React Router with Codux, because the way they have it all set up. So what you can do to fix that issue is head over to Codux here, pop open your boards. Let's go into our app right here. And what we need to do is import the memory router from React router DOM. Perfect. So let's take that, and all we need to do is just wrap our application here like that, and that should fix all of our issues. Now, one more thing we need to do in our app.tsx, so if we head over to our app, is import route and routes here. There we go. And then rather than just rendering out the component like that, what we can do is also import the nav here if we wanted to. Again, you can just do that if you go here. As you can see, it works now. If we just add components, just pop in our nav right on top of it. There, poof, done. All right, just so we get the nice auto import and everything, it just makes it quite easy. And then we can do routes here, and then our route, we're only gonna have one now. It's gonna have the path to the home page, and the element that we want to render out is gonna be this intro. Like that. Oof, we need to render it out like this. My apologies. Intro. Hit save. Let's see if that works. So there we go. Looks like it works. Perfect. If I click on it now, of course, it's only going to take me back to the home page, but that's fine. All right, let's style up this nav bar. Open it up. Let's head over to our children here, and we have our link tag. So let's go on the H1. We're going to start with some font size changes. So let's do rem here, and we're going to do something really small, like 1. Yeah, I'm happy with that. Now for the color, let's change that to... I want it to be simple, to be honest. I'll just keep it black for now. There we go. Perfect. That looks good to me. And then on the actual nav, let's create a class here as well. We're going to add a display flex to this. There we go. But what we also need to do is add a display flex to the root here. So let's add a display flex. Perfect. Let's do center for the vertical. And then what we can do is maybe do a space between. So there we go. All I added here was just a display flex and just gave some space in between them, a position sticky and a Z index of 50. And the only difference here that I did with the media queries is the margin's gonna go down by quite a bit to 3% like we did previously. And just the flex direction is gonna go to column. So if we go down, poof, there we go. And that's it. So we have that hooked up, which is perfect. Now, one more thing that we forgot to do is actually in our main.tsx is to add the browser router. So let's import that. There we go. And then all we need to do is wrap our application inside of it like that. Perfect. Let's hit save. And that's it done. If we check out our contact form, if we hit on it, there we go, it's empty, and we can go back to our portfolio here, and that's it. Cool. Let's fix up some of these styling issues here, because it looks like this one's animating in, but this one is not. So what we can do is actually just copy this finished version of the SVG over now. Again, all we added was that little animation. So if we have over here, let's find it. Here it is, motion SVG. Again, just make sure you add the initial and the animate to it. And we can also add a transition to be fair, and just add a bit of delay to this. Maybe like 1 second. All right, so let's just copy this over from our portfolio, and we'll go over to our intro. So let's highlight that SVG, paste it in there, and then import motion from React Framer motion, just to make sure it works. And there we go. So if we head back here, do a refresh, and there we go, we get the nice lines animating in. Now, one more thing I need to do is also change the stroke width of that to 3 pixels, just so they match up, and adjust the CSS. All right, finally we can hook up our contact page, which is gonna be fairly simple. So let's head here, and what we're gonna do is, let's make a form. So contact, pop this open, let's get rid of this text, and let's just search for form. Okay, pop that in there. As you can see, we have name already, last name, and a submit button. So that's perfect. That gives us a good start. But let's head here to VS Code, because I want to hook up a animation as well. So in Lottie, if you search for form, there's another cool animation that you can find. If it would load, I mean, you can get any of these. I think I used this one. If you want to plug that into your code, feel free to do it. But let's head to our code. And what we're going to do is import a couple of things. I'm going to need useState for my context so I can get all that form data. Why am I delayed today? It's like I'm lagging. So let's import useState from React. And I'm also going to import, let me find it. We'll get this animation in as well. It's called form submitted. So I'll just pop it in there. Let's call this form animation from, and we'll head over to //assets form animation. There we go, perfect. And then finally, we also need to import Lottie. Let's pop that in there. And then we need to hook up the actual logic for it. So I'm gonna say query and set query and set that equal to useState. And here we're gonna have a name that's gonna be empty for now, an email that's gonna be empty, and finally a message like that. Cool. I'll also have a state here that's gonna keep track if my form is submitted or not. And the reason I'm adding this is so I can switch out the animation for the actual input down here. Next up, I wrote a little code here, a function that's called handle param. And what essentially this is doing is it's taking in the event and also the value. So I'm looking at the name of it and the value of it, and I'm setting the query here based on whatever it was previously in the state, and I'm just updating the actual name with the value like that, which means it's super cool because we can just have this one function here and apply it to multiple inputs, and it's automatically going to detect, oh, well, if name here is going to be name, then it's going to match the name from my use state here. So it's going to know to only update that. Okay, so that's what we essentially need to do. So let's head over to Codux actually a little bit. And here in my div root, I'm gonna start adding a couple of things. Let's add a h2. There we go. And in here, I'll rename this to get in touch. Wave, happy, perfect. And then we have our form. Let's add a style to all of these. So we'll do this called create a class form title. And then the form is actually gonna have a new style. We'll just call it form. So there we go. All I did was added a label to each with an input on them, and then again another label. Just make sure you have the name on it as well, and the type of email. And on change, of course, I added the handle param on top of all of them. Now, how are we actually submitting this form? That's the question. Well, we're going to be using a little service. And that little service is called getForm.io. So getForm.io, I signed up, I logged in. And here, if you look at their examples, as you can see, they're quite simple. All you need is the endpoint API, which you're going to find here. So as you can see, this is some test messages I sent through. And what we can do is just get that API key and use it. So to actually submit the form, we can make another function. Again, remember, this is just handling the data that's in the form. So updating the actual value and getting the value. So here I'm going to call this form submit. It's going to have an event like that. I'm going to say prevent default to stop the browser's default behavior of like refreshing the page. And I can actually just get all the form data here if I make a new form data like that. And then here's a cool trick. You can do object entries and look through the entry of each query from our state here. And we can loop over that and say for each. And here I can get access to the key and the value of it like that. Now this is what I find really cool. And here we can run an arrow function where we can just say form data.append, and we can append the key with the value like that. All right, perfect. And then here what we can do is do the actual fetching. So we can say const submit form, let's call it that, is equal to, and I can set an async here with an await, and I'll just fetch. And again, here you need to post in your API key from getForms. So what I'm gonna have is, let me just post that here. It's gonna be the URL and the method with the body of form data in there. Append the .then here, that works perfectly fine too. You don't necessarily, if you're working with await, it doesn't mean you cannot use .then. I'm just gonna set the query here and just say name is gonna be nothing. So we basically just want to clear everything out. But not only that, what I'm gonna do is also set the submitted over to true. And what this is gonna allow me to do is to simply go down here and just say submitted and open pair of parentheses. I can make a div here and add my Lottie animation right there. And I can do animation data equals to form animation. I can turn off the loop, set that equal to false. and I can also style it up. So submitted, what did I write? Submitted, and hit save. And now I can do the same thing with the form, so I can just say if it's not submitted, then display this for me. So I can copy that over and paste it in and hit save. And finally, what we can do is just head over to the form here, and all we want to do is say, hey, when we are submitting this form, so on submit, make sure you run the form submit. And that should be all of it. So if we try this out and hit send, look at that, boom, it works, awesome. And then if we refresh, we are back to the state. So I'm just gonna add the display flex, organize this a bit, and then I'll show you how we can push this code up. And the last thing we need to do is just import this component here into our app and actually render it out here. And that's it. That's essentially it. If we preview it now, look at that. I just changed the colors of this a little bit, made it a bit bigger. And look at that. We have a really nice animation. I also added a couple more motion tags on these just to give it more animation, and also a link to Let's Collaborate. So that's going to bring you to contact as well. So let's try this. And hit send, and when we hit send, hopefully we'll be presented with the form submitted. And there we go, that's it. Hope you enjoyed this episode. I know there was quite a bit to learn from it. Give Codux a try, it's free. And the amount of, so this is what I love about them is I've been in contact with them and I was like, oh, you know, it'd be really cool to do this. And they really took that feedback in mind and actually started making the changes and improving it. So I'm really excited to see where it's gonna go. I'm definitely going to use it for creating components and just, you know, the ability to quickly create components and organize them. I feel like that's a really strong power. And also this visual styling. It's hard to go back to just writing code, hit save and look, and hit save and look. So for that, it's fantastic. Okay, that's going to be it for me. Thank you so much for watching. Check out Codux. Love you all. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye.